Are they in last?
No, they're second right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I heard free you earlier.
It feels like that, you know.
Definitely. It feels free sometimes.
They certainly complain as if they're in last place all the time. But that's just hard to Of course, nothing but love to the EU fans. You know, all jokes aside, going to Amsterdam this past year, just seeing the passion of the Hearthstone fans in Amsterdam and all of Europe
it was great.
fantastic.
It was
you were there as
insane.
well, cheering. It was really great. And I love going out to Europe, and I really hope we get another really big event in Europe, because they really showed up big time. And they're really smart too. Like, they know when to cheer and when to clap. You know, most fans sometimes they just get rowdy for the wrong reason. They're like, he drew a card, you know. But they like understand like what the hype moments are. It was really such a blessing to be able to cast there.
It was great to see. I will say though, I was one of the obnoxious Americans holding the American flag.
Yes, you
when
were.
Frozen went up there. So,
you bloody.
So I'm sure I won't
meow.
be allowed back next time the Worlds is held there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the security patrol gate that does customs will be like, all right, we're denying you entry.
They just have me on the side, like a little poster.
Yeah. Nightmare Amalgam, a card that's just in this warrior, and I thought that Nightmare Amalgam would actually have a slightly bigger impact, given that we weren't sure about the core mech minions. This was before we saw all the cards, right? Because we saw the first few mech cards with magnetics. So I was like, okay, I thought Nightmare Amalgam would have a bigger impact, and I still kind of do, because it's fairly reliable minion and hard to remove early on. And it's just a good target for magnetic, and it's never like bad to play, because a lot of those magnetic combos, you sometimes want to combo with other things a lot of the time.
Yeah, overall it's just like a solid minion. It's solid statted. It curves out pretty well with just some of the mechs. Like if you have coin, obviously you can go coin into the war gear, which is pretty impressive. I just want to say though, Dan, I think we're in for a doozy. This is
I just noticed the take up on both sides. So when in the old days of you know, like just a car warrior, where you played just a car of 6, whoever went first had the advantage to be able to gain the most armor if they were able to play just car early. But now you're in a scenario where both of you are guaranteed early on. So what are some ways to gain the advantage? Is the person going first? Is the person that plays the minions first? Is the person that plays the slowest? What do you think?
A lot of times it comes into the deck building decisions. So for instance, you're looking at this Omega Assembly, and a lot of times if, you know, one player is running that Omega Assembly, let's say the other one's not, well, that's just extra value that the other team does not have. So a lot of times it comes straight down to the deck building phase. I mean, obviously you can play out the matchup in certain ways. You want to try and fit that hero power in as much as possible. But if someone has a much greedier list than the other, that's where a lot of times where, you know, they just shine. I mean, they went to the deck building phase. They said, you know what, we already feel favored enough against aggro. We can take a couple percentage points there. Let's go ahead and make it greedier for the mirror. I'm not quite sure whose list is greedier for the mirror yet. So we've only seen a couple of cards in the list, but I think that's going to be a big factor in this one.
Yeah, definitely agree there. It ends up coming down to, like, maybe you have one minion that can stick to the board and hit, and your opponent doesn't. They just have to tank up, and they lose effectively their hero power advantage. But it is a fairly passive game. Both players, or both teams rather, having their Baku. I wonder how Dr. Boom comes to the mix, though, because you ditch your tank up. Tank up is there just to survive to Dr. Boom. And then, you know, what can you really capitalize with your hero power? Seems like you'll have a better tank up.
I know. I'm actually curious about that as well. Sometimes, you know, you get that gain 7 armor, which is, you know, a little bit better. But then sometimes, let's say you keep whiffing on it. Your opponent just constantly gaining armor. Was it even worth playing Dr. Boom in the long run? I think it probably will be. Because not only do you have the gain 7 armor option, which is, I think, better, you also have the discover a mech. And if you're constantly just discovering a mech, then you're effectively getting rid of your opponent's armor, or you're summoning 3 1/1s, which gets rid of your opponent's armor, or you deal 3 damage. The effects ultimately cancel each other out in the long run.
It's true. I think what Dr. Boom Mad Genius does in this matchup is kind of accelerate the pace of the game. Think about how Malfurion versus Malfurion Druid mirrors go, where it's like neither of you can kill each other because of spreading plague, and like both of you don't really have the way to have your win conditions end the game because you have too much armor. So how do you actually win from that position? Well, a lot of times one player takes an aggressive posture and force the matchup to speed up because they think that they have the tools to out-resource their opponent. In this case, Dr. Boom Mad Genius can do that. He can play aggressively, force a lot of removal, and then leverage a hero power to discover mech or to push just a little bit extra damage every single turn. And if that's the case, if that's the instance, the War of Attrition does end up favoring Dr. Boom Mad Genius. And look at this, like a high-value play, being able to glut the Zeus the Warhound. That's a step in the right direction.
that probably feels so good. I've never done that, Dan. Have you ever gluttonous used Warhouse?
I don't think so, because I haven't played against many like odd warriors in general.
Yeah, you
like,
don't really see it too often.
Yeah, like the most common warrior that I played against prior to this was Quest Warrior. They just never ran Gorehowl, so I haven't played against like odd warriors and Gorehowls in quite some time. I have seen it on ladder though, but they never played Gorehowl because I was playing a fast deck.
You killed them before they ever got
killed
the
them
chance
way
to play.
before they had a chance to do
Gorehowl.
it. I had the Keliseth ready to go.
Typically, that card right there doesn't get that much value in this matchup because I think there's like a lot of, mechs on both sides. So it's really nice to see, they found out a way to get value out of that card. That's something you really want to do. Oh,
yeah, that is a way that this could end up backfiring, as many great Mad Geniuses have experienced. Just having the 1 damage to all enemy minions is not going to do anything. So if they end up getting that more often than not, then that could be a problem. I do want to let you guys know that the Play Arsenal team has posted the deck list that's been officially submitted. So if you want to try out some of these wacky off-the-wall strategies like Discard Warlock, the mid-range Evolve Shaman, you got these odd control tank-up warriors, you got the really wacky mech Miracle Priest. There's some really interesting decks out there that we're going to
Or if you just want good old Zulok.
Yeah.
Or good old Odd Paladin.
Yeah, that's the very rare and unique, never really before seen Zoo Warlock.
The fresh off the press is Odd Paladin.
Yeah. And then there's one more. The Pogo Hopper. That one's also.
Did we say Temple Mage as well?
The Temple Mage is still being refined, I feel like, and I think that deck does have a lot of promise. However, I do feel like it's in the same position as the previous metagame, where like there's some aggro decks that do it a little bit more better against the field because, Temple Mage is like really good against certain things and really bad against others.
I think one of those things where Temple Mage was really good against Warlock for a period of time because Warlock, didn't really have that heal access. And now they kind of have more. And
the Mecha'thun.
We found a win condition.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's also just a 10. It's also just a 10/10 that needs to be dealt with.
Oh no, we're saving that the whole time, Dan.
You're never gonna play the Mecha'thun.
Never gonna play it till the end.
I mean, you're right. If it ends up coming to a fatigue scenario, you can't kill it.
Exactly.
You have to let it just deal 10 to you, so you have to beat it before that.
It's gonna win the game either way, hopefully.
No, you're completely right. A lot of times there can be a scenario where the fatigue ends up just becoming the deciding factor in like Control Warrior Mirror. Neither of you have cards left. You just tank up and you see who wins after the end of the fatigue race. Mecha'thun can't be killed if it's the last minion on the field, so you just hit him for 10 every turn, so you win.
Yeah, I mean, I will believe that. I think there are some silences in the list. Iron Beak Owl is prominent in the list a lot of the times.
Right.
So if Rennie Hour does have Iron Beak Owl, and make sure to hold it for that very fringe scenario, that'd be pretty heads up.
That'd be insane, Reed.
Sometimes you gotta make those reads, though, especially when they hold the mech for so long.
Well, here's another way you can tell. If your opponent starts to aggressively draw, let's say they like Acolyte double Warpath with nothing on board. It's like, okay, I think they discovered Mecha'thun. It's like, at that point, you kind of recognize what's going on.
Or here's a shield block, and they're probably thinking to themselves, why would they ever play shield block here?
Exactly. It's still relatively innocuous, but if they start drawing just a little bit more, if I'm Korea, I start suspecting that.
Oh, I will say though, Dan, it could be really awkward. What happens if the other Omega Assembly gets another Mecha'thun? First one doesn't work. I know you get to play the second one later. The first one doesn't work. And I want to see it work. I want to see it work.
So the optimal play is to... Well, you just play the first one. Just 10 block.
Well, yeah, but...
But then it'd be funny if you just saved this entire thing. Yeah. I mean, Dr. Boom Magines can also discover Mecha'thun.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Right, it's a mech itself. So, we're on the Discover Mech option. Let's find out what's behind the box. See, Brainy Hour knows what's going on. He's not playing his shield blocks.
I didn't even think about that. It's just another way to win this matchup is you discover Mecha'thun.
Right.
You try and discover it before the fatigue timer ticks.
I actually think that when you discover, it is like the best option. They do have the Iron Beak Owl. Oh, Mechanical Whelp. This is a card that Admiral was talking about. He thinks this card is severely underrated. Was that you? they told me about mechanical whelp.
It might have been me, because I remember mentioning that I think it's very powerful in certain decks. For instance, there's a deck running around. It is a Death Rattle Rogue variant.
Right.
And with the Death Rattle Rogue variant, you play this card, and then sometimes you get... I'm going to mispronounce this. Necreum Vial?
Yeah.
You get Necreum Vial and you cast it onto the Mechanical Whelp, and then you just get 2 free 7/7s, which a lot of times can just be insane and absurd.
Right. Wins you the game.
Exactly. So that's why I think this card has a lot of potential. I will say, though, however, if Priest ever gets popular and Cabal becomes back in the meta, I think that's one of the best Cabal targets I've ever seen.
Just play Control Priest, answer all the the aggro with Dustbreaker, and answer all the Death Rattle stuff with Cabal Shadow Priest, Twilight Acolyte. It's going to be nasty. Yeah, so how dead is Reckless Flurry in this matchup, by the way?
I'm looking at it right now, and it appears to be pretty dead. You really can't afford to cast that. I mean, it's only really there for aggressive matchups. I mean, that's about it. I was going to say, typically, that Beryllium is very hard to answer, because it does have that tag of the cannot be targeted by really anything. Right. But since Dr. Boom is online and all the mechs have rush, it just made it look like it was simple work. Just not much that he can really do.
I wonder if you can even get really cute and do some Death Rattle packages in here, because you have minions that have rush that can kill themselves. I don't know. It's certainly curious to think about. Yeah. Shaxi just kind of overwhelmed with the options. I can do everything, except part of what makes Dynamatic good was killing non-mechs. Except my opponent has all mechs, so it's just not going to do anything. Not to mention that his minions not having rush inherently forced him to make a big play with the Zilliax. And sure, he kills this, but this was a free minion that was generated by Dr. Magic. This is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and if those minions keep coming up, or Korea constantly gets access to that discover a mech hero power, then it could be just devastating. This goes back to what we were mentioning earlier.
Right.
A lot of times those hero powers are just going to overwhelm the deal 4 damage or the tank up hero power. There's not really much that you can do about it.
Yeah, but Riniauer has utilized that Iron Beak Owl, so he hasn't picked up on the slight clues of drawing a little bit aggressively.
Might be thinking he's just trying to draw to Dr. Boom.
Right, but I mean, Shax did a good job too, because he had the option to shield block and just really give it away, using both shield blocks in a matchup where you just don't want to. So he's trying to be a little bit coy, not give it away, but still push the issue just a little bit.
And unless they're running 2 copies of Iron Beak out, those are both gone right now.
Hey, gets value.
It's such a cool card. I like the Dynamo.
Yeah, I was telling Honorable that it's everything you wished Mad Bomber was prior to this expansion. Just oh, it just feels so good. Just to be able to land it, arcane missiles every time. Cinderstorm just did not kill anything and just left the perfect 1 health minion on board. You're yes.
Every time you witness the Cinderstorm. Oh, actually going for the Reckless Flurry. Getting rid of 28 armor.
The plan has been revealed.
28 armor just left, Dan.
So now when he's drawing aggressively with Talon Crier, removing his armor, I think the plan has just been exposed. I'm going to Mech Cthulhu you. And now it's up to Riniauer to discover a way to fight against it.
Is there any mechs that actually give your opponent cards, in their hand? Is there any way to kind of try and do that? Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Is there any mechs that give you? I don't think so. There's stuff that shuffles, isn't there? Isn't there a card that shuffles a bomb to your opponent's deck? But I think it draws automatically, so it's irrelevant.
I'm not sure if that's a mech.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a mech either. It's
I think it's a 6-mana 5/5.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, there are a handful of cards that you can use to mess with Mech Cthulhu that I've been thinking about, Tango for Mystic, King Mukla, but all of them, of course, are just, not actually real.
Exactly, very fringe, and probably not in these deck lists.
But I've been thinking about them just to, as conversation pieces.
And it looks like, actually, Taiwan doesn't have that many cards left in the deck.
Yeah,
looks like they're actually running out.
Yeah.
There's the Dr. Boom.
Sure. I think all you have to do is really survive. Wow.
You gotta play all your cards anyways.
And because of the conservative play and also the very liberal use of Iron Beak Owl, Korea may have thrown away their chance to react and respond to the Mech Cthulhu. Now, we're still calling a little bit early. I still wonder if there's any way to win that we're not thinking about. Is there a way to stop the Mechathune from happening? Is there a way to steal it? Is there a way to silence it?
Well, it's actually crazy because I don't think Korea's onto the plan at all. Because one of the ways you could actually, you know, try and play around it is by putting pressure on the board.
They need to extend onto the board here.
But another scenario could come up where, let's say, they don't put any more pressure on the board, they just answer threats, right? And the last two cards in the deck are Mechathune and Brawl. But they only play one minion ever, that way Brawl never gets casted. That way they can answer a Mechathune.
Right. Oh, yes.
That's very, like, crazy thinking, but that might be, like, the only answer.
So it's in Taiwan's best interest to eventually cast Brawl on their own minions.
They would have to, especially if Korea is on the game plan and just plays one minion a turn and just doesn't do anything else.
Or just maybe no minions a turn.
Exactly,
and
or just no minions at all. Doesn't even give them the option.
You have to play Mechathune at that point. You're right, there are some dead cards. Or execute. You have to execute your opponent's minion, but it's an odd warrior, so it's not the case. But in the event where like they pick up,
there was, yes.
Yeah, like if they play a regular control warrior and they have Dr. Boom Mad Genius, you can try to hedge around that.
It's actually funny because they're actually playing EMP Operative. Did you see that? It's the 5-mana 3/3 to destroy him back.
That's so funny.
There's their answer for Mechathune.
Yeah, I guess. So we should Harrison and Brawl here, right?
I mean, you have to get rid of that card from your hand.
Wait. Dr. Boom summons 3/1/1s at one point, so you can Brawl your
That
own
is
minions.
true. You can Brawl that eventually.
Wow.
Completely forgot about that being like a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, where's the world where you never hit the 3/1/1s?
Well, or at least enough turns to the point where you lose control of the game, you know. But there is the possibility you don't ever hit the microbots. You're right.
Or your opponent keeps hitting Discover and finally finds a Mechathune of their own.
Right.
This is so interesting. It's just kind of crazy to see these little convoluted little
I think Shaxx
answers.
is like thinking like, oh man, I just played as Harrison, but Reckless Flurry is also a little. Oh, that's why they used it so aggressively, because they wanted to get out of their hands so they can build the armor count.
That way they could use the other one.
Right, yeah. Because Reckless Flurry would be a dead card if they don't have that armor and they need to spend it later on. It's like you said, though, I don't think Korea's onto it, so I'm waiting to see their reaction.
So either.
Yeah, I am waiting for the reaction for Korea when they just see that this is exactly what they weren't playing around.
I wonder if they discover the Mechathune and they look at it,
Like,
then they realize.
No. That'd be great. Because in their mind, they think they're all good. They're still not.
Yeah, they're
doing
like,
anything.
wow, why do they keep drawing cards?
Do you really want to discover minions here? I guess it doesn't hurt.
You might as well, because you're going to play it anyways.
Right.
I guess you technically could discover minions and then play 2 1-drops and Brawl as well, just to try and get it out of your hand.
I actually think I like that plan. I don't mind just ditching some of this removal, too. I think Shaxi is very concerned about losing removal in case he needs to remove a minion.
Because he knows there's still Dire Horn Matriarchs in the deck.
I'm also thinking about really funny things of, like, you know, if Mechathune just never dies, like you say, if they're able to find a way to just keep generating enough life. Because, you know, it would take a lot of hits to die. It takes at least 6 hits now with higher potential.
Shaxi just cracking up over there.
Like, Giggling Inventor stops Mechathune from dying for a very long time, unless you have support from the Dr. Boom hero power.
Yeah, you need like the microbots that deal 3 damage, or just to deal 1 to all.
At least a Trailblazer. Can that pick up anything? It can shuffle a pack which discovers, which creates 5 cards from Journey to Ungoro. And is there any transform effect in it?
You can get Primordial Glyph into Omega Assembly into Mechathune. You could get Primordial Glyph into Journey to Unguru, or you can get Journey to Unguru, and then you can get the Demon card.
Yes.
Can you? Does it work that way? Because I think it's
no.
It's only class cards. I'm sure there's
gotta be
way to get to it. It's just probably some crazy.
I'm thinking so hard because right now this is all just a formality. Like all of this is just basically posture. Like, there's no actual real impact that's being made by any of these plays right now. And that's it, out of cards.
Can even cast his whole hand this turn.
Do weapons count towards Mech-Cthulhu? I haven't seen a Mech-Cthulhu weapon interaction yet. I don't think so.
The weapon will be played, and Mech-Cthulhu only says minions on the board, your hand, and deck. But yeah, it could actually cast everything. Could even gain the 2 armor because of the rush.
Yeah. Shield Slam. Shield Slam Gorehowl. That's all the cards. Renial realizes now. He's like, why are you Shield Slam? He has to discourage Mech-Cthulhu. And Shaxy's like laughing. He's like, yes.
Oh, this is great.
He found a way to win. There's like 1 card remaining.
Rainier might still be thinking, why has he not conceded?
Look at Shaxy popping off right now. First of all, your job's not done. You still have to have Mech-Cthulhu die, and your opponent might be able to figure out something.
Okay, here's that something. You shield slam your own Giggling Inventor with the EMP operative. You leave up that 1/2 forever.
And then you just take... Oh, right, because then they can't play Mech-Cthulhu.
So you would have to leave up that 1/2. So to do that, you shield slam your own minion. That way you cannot trade off. And then
he should have shield slammed his own minion. Oh, he can deal damage to his own minion. You have to wait for the hero power to deal damage to his own minion. There's a laser that you can deal 3 with Dr. Boom.
That too. So I'm sure there's a bunch of ways to do that, but this is
Okay, so I think they plan on killing their own minions with this? No, they're doing the Hail Mary with the Least Trailblazer. They're trying to hope for the pack opening and
or just trying to put enough pressure to end the game through like
fatigue.
Damage. Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Fatigue damage can also matter. The Eye of Cthulhu, Mech-Cthulhu with the rush.
Has rush.
It has so much damage. You don't actually want to kill any minions on board.
This is insane. But the question is, does 10 damage outdeal how much fatigue they're going to be taking?
The pack! Shield slam your own minion! Open the pack!
Oh,
What's in the pack?
Insane.
What's in the pack?
Shaxy
wants this to happen so bad. This is the last game for both these teams. After this, they can finally go to bed. But I think the adrenaline rush might prevent that from happening for a while.
Is there any way you can steal the Mech-Cthulhu? Is there any on Guru cards that we're not thinking of?
You can Cornered Sentry. And then Mind Control Tech. They don't have MC Tech. Or do they?
We're going to find out.
Pack!
What's in the pack?
3 cards. They didn't shield slam their own minion.
Glacial Shard.
Glacial Shard
attacking for a turn.
What?
They might be able to push enough damage to end the game.
Well, there's a laser for 3 damage, so Mech-Cthulhu can get lower.
They take 2 fatigue. They take 3 fatigue on the fall.
Right. So 3 on the following turn plus the 10 on the board puts them at 13 damage. So they have 6 life. The Gorehowl does it just end it? Gorehowl plus the Death Coil. They did it. They somehow beat Mech-Cthulhu. How did this happen? Korea is going to win 2-1 and take the Boomsday Invitational in first place.
That Glacial Shard.
The Glacial Shard.
The Glacial Shard off the pack from Unguru.
Regruins is just applauding. He's like, dude, good job.
They just look so stressed after that.
That was quite the roller coaster. I really thought for a long time that Taiwan had that.
I really did too. I was trying to figure out, what could Korea do? And I was saying the only way is pressure. But then there's
you were right, man, from the
crazy
get-go.
Answers.
You're like, how do you answer Mech-Cthulhu traditionally? Just pressure them.